The biggest killer of mankind today is not a gun, it's not a plane falling down. Psychiatrists have become a real drug dispensing. Actually, now we know that old elderly ladies, old elderly in English means above 85. Old elderly ladies who are still alive and healthy in the French nursing homes have on an average a cholesterol of 500 milligrams per cent to 900 milligrams per cent. Because in your body you have, how many cells do you have in the body? School going kids? 53 trillion. Good. It's not bad. Anyway, 50 to 100 trillion cells. That is 10 to the power 14. And those cells die in billions every day because they have their time to die. They are told that is called apoptosis. Apoptosis in Greek means falling of a brown leaf. This word was coined by a botanist called Martin Raff, who was a professor of botany in the University College in London in the early part of the last century. And Martin gave the name apoptosis. That is a cell, when it's told, there's a gene called the suicidal gene. Gene tells the cell, like for example a red cell, 120 days is life. An RBC. At the end of the 120 days, it gets a message saying that, look, Mr. RBC, your time is up. So the RBC responds. The cell is intact. Apoptosis is intact cell. Becomes smaller, 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 and becomes amorphic. Loses its structure, form. And at that time, it becomes a speck of dust. And we have a lot of scavengers. And they are so efficient inside. They don't require even that machine to broom. They come, eat it up. Phagocytes. Phage is appetite. They have got so much of appetite for cells. Any cell that is dying, they eat it up. So you're fine. But now what happens? You make the surrounding of the cell so bad that the cell, instead of dying apoptosis, dies by necrosis. Necrosis is cell wall breaks. And when this necrosis occurs, the cell content comes out, which is very bad for the outside, and the outside gets destroyed. And this is one of the reasons why you get cancer, etc., etc. So anyway, that's not our content. Now, our content is this, that each cell, when it comes in contact with this kind of a drug, rejects it. So the drug must be taken in its natural form. That is why the poet wrote, little do we see in nature that is ours. Little do we see in nature that is ours. Getting and spending, we seem to have lost our powers. What are we doing? Ask the chartered accountant. How many people want to cheat? I mean, probably, in a philosophic way, today if you cheat the government, I would be very happy because the government is squandering that money. You give that money as tax, it's used for, it directly is into the Swiss banks. And probably India is the biggest depositor in the Swiss bank. So instead of that, you can do some good others. So we have a lot of these what called philanthropes. The philanthropes are those who really want name for giving that thing. So and so has given, that kind of a thing. When once you take any drug in its natural form, the body immediately says, this is mine, I know. My grandfather has eaten it. It's like rice or it's like wheat. So it is immediately taken in. So the MIT study or the mitochondrial chip study showed that it is the body's intelligence and the energy that runs the system and not the drugs. And all that the modern drugs could do is ADR, adverse drug reactions. The biggest killer of mankind today is not a gun, it's not a plane falling down. You would be surprised in America alone, whose population is little over the population of probably Nagpur. Not Nagpur, 300 million, around less than 300 million. 4 jumbo jets full of people die every week due to drugs. If one jumbo jet falls down in this world, there will be news for 2 months in all the television, 24 hours 7. And every week, 4 jumbo jets fall down. And these people unnecessarily die by what is called iatrogenesis, doctor-induced illness, through our biggest weapons of mass destruction, about which I have written with the caption called Weapons of Mass Destruction in the British Medical Journal, the drugs, chemical drugs. So friends, avoid as many chemical drugs as is possible. I had a colleague of mine, professor of psychology. Some of you may have been, his name is K.B. Kumar, Professor Kumar, who was at one time the president of the Behavioral Society. He is now in Hyderabad. This boy was so good, I tell you, I took him as the professor. And within about 2 years, the psychiatry department was empty. No patient was going to the psychiatry department. This fellow had to sit till about 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning to finish his patient load. So the psychiatrist started complaining about him, writing memos about him. He is very bad, he is grabbing our patients. I said, nobody can grab a patient. If a patient wants to go somewhere, he goes. How can you say? So somehow or other they managed to keep him till I was there. The day I retired, they somehow maneuvered and threw him out. Can you believe that? The best doctor was thrown out. Anyway, he got a better job. And he is now he is almost the king of whatever he surveys. And still the same humble soul. And that's why I like this psychiatrist. Psychiatrists have become real drug dispensing machines. Just because they have no patience. The minute he says, I had no sleep last 2 nights, then he says, are you feeling fine? No, doctor, I no enthusiasm. Right, he'll start with an antidepressant. And when will that end? Great. This is the problem. This is the problem. So this is where a psychiatrist, a professor of psychiatry in America, she was young, energetic, and was like our friend. She wrote a book called Dementia, a drug-induced crime on mankind by doctors. And she published this book. Her name is Grace Elizabeth Jackson. She was thrown out of the medical college. She was in the Naval Medical College as the professor of psychiatry. She was thrown out of the Navy. She was thrown out of the medical college, thrown on the road. But this book is getting her millions of dollars, and she's invited all over the world to lecture. And her lecture fees is such that, one lecture she can, 10 months salary comes in one lecture. So this girl is very happy. But what I'm saying is, this is how the world is. 1968, I wrote a small article called Unconventional Wisdom in Medicine. When did I write it? 1968. And my department sat together and said, this is a nut. He must be thrown out. So they proposed that I be dismissed. But anyway, that then dean probably was a nut himself, so he didn't dismiss me. So I survived by the skin of my teeth. This happens. This very much happens in this world. So it is very difficult to fight for a truth. I don't want to call it the truth, because Khalil Gibran said, never say the truth. It's a truth. And it become different later on, because truth is not something which is stationary. Truth changes. And a truth, even if you fight for a truth, it is difficult.